The morning started like any other in the great crystal halls of the Galactic Assembly. Sunlight from 3 different stars filtered through the massive windows, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floors. Representatives from dozens of worlds moved quietly through the corridors, various forms creating a peaceful symphony of different cultures working together. Commander Zektar of the Velkari walked slowly toward the emergency meeting room. His 4 thin arms trembled slightly as he carried the data pad that would change everything. The Valkyrie were known throughout the galaxy for their calm nature and diplomatic skills. Their translucent skin and gentle voices made them perfect for solving problems between different species. But today, Zektar felt anything but calm. The Zeth Trade Minister Quint H buzzed past him in the hallway, his insect-like wings creating a soft humming sound. The smell of worry pheromones followed him like a cloud. Even the massive Karan Elder Moran, whose tree-like body usually moved with the slow confidence of someone who had lived for 1,000 years, seemed to shuffle with unusual urgency. Something was very wrong in the galaxy. The emergency council chamber filled quickly. Representatives from the major worlds took their places around the circular table that had been the center of galactic peace for 3,000 years.
Altarian Knights,
proud warriors who served as the Assembly's military force, stood at attention along the walls. Their energy shields flickered nervously. Their hands rested on the hilts of their plasma swords. Elder Moran raised one of her massive branch-like arms for silence. Her bar-covered face showed the wisdom of ages. But today it also showed fear. "Brothers and sisters of the Assembly," she began, her voice deep and slow like wind through ancient forests. "We face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history." The room fell silent. Even the Zeth stopped their constant shirt. Commander Zektar stood and activated his datapad. Holographic display filled the center of the room, showing a map of the galaxy. 12 sectors on the outer rim glowed. An ominous red. "Honored Assembly," he said, his voice barely steady, "the Devourers have consumed 12 more star systems in the past rotation. Our fleets cannot slow them down." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Devourers were creatures of nightmare, beings of living shadow that appeared from the galactic core 50 years ago. They consumed everything in their path: planets, stars, entire solar systems, leaving nothing but empty space and cosmic dust. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They simply devoured and moved on. "How many ships have we lost?" asked Captain Veltar of the Altarian Knights. Her proud warrior race had been fighting the Devourers longer than anyone, and the strain showed in her voice. "All of them," Zektar replied quietly. "The 4th Fleet, the 7th Fleet, and the combined Outer Rim Defense Force, gone, not destroyed, consumed. Their matter was absorbed and turned into more Devourer ships." The silence that followed was deafening. The Assembly's fleets represented the combined military might of over 50 worlds. Advanced energy weapons, shields that could stop asteroid impacts, and warriors trained from birth to protect the galaxy. All of it had proven useless against the advancing darkness. "Minister." Quinth's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the information. "What about the new plasma cannon arrays on Nexus Station? Surely they can stop these creatures." Zektar touched his datapad again. The hologram showed the massive space station, bristling with the most advanced weapons the galaxy had ever built. Then it showed the same station 3 days later, a cloud of glowing particles being absorbed by a mass of writhing shadows. "Nexus Station lasted 14 minutes, Zektar reported. "Devourers seem to absorb energy-based attacks and use them to grow stronger. Kinetic weapons have limited effect. They adapt to our tactics within hours of first contact." Elder Moran S. Ancient wood creaked as she leaned forward. "Show them the projections." The hologram changed to show the Devourer's projected path of advance. The red zone of consumed space crept steadily inward toward the core worlds. Mathematical calculations scrolled beside the image. Population numbers, defensive capabilities, estimated time until arrival. At their current rate of advance, Zektar continued, the Devourers will reach the inner systems within 6 rotations. Core worlds, including this one, will fall within 10 rotations. Panic rippled through the chamber. Representatives began speaking at once in dozens of different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the flood of terrified voices. Order. Elder Moran's voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. We must maintain our composure if we are to find a solution. Captain Veltar stepped forward, her energy sword gleaming at her side. Elder, give us the order to mobilize. The Home Guard. Every ship. Every warrior. We will make our stand at the Barrier Nebula and hold them there. With what? Zektar asked bitterly. Our conventional weapons are useless. Our energy shields might as well be made of paper. These creatures have consumed the military might of half the galaxy, and they are only getting stronger. The debate continued for hours. Evacuation plans were proposed and rejected. There was nowhere to run that the Devourers could not follow. Desperate weapon designs were suggested and dismissed. There was no time to build anything new. Some representatives even spoke of surrender, though no one knew if the Devourers could be reasoned with, as the arguments grew more heated and less productive. Elder Moran sat in silence, her ancient mind working through possibilities that others dared not consider. Finally, she raised her arm again for silence. There is one option we have not discussed, she said slowly. The forbidden sectors. The chamber fell completely silent. Every being present knew what she meant, and the very idea made them recoil. In horror, the forbidden sectors were the galaxy's darkest secret star systems, marked on no official charts. Worlds that were never spoken of in polite society. These were the Deathworlds. Planets so hostile and dangerous that they were considered uninhabitable by any civilized species. Worlds where the gravity was crushing, the atmosphere was poison, the weather was violent beyond imagination, and the native life forms were nightmares made real. For thousands of years, the Assembly had maintained strict quarantine protocols around these systems. They were too dangerous to study, too horrible to even think about. The few survey ships that had ever approached them had either fled in terror or vanished completely. You cannot be serious, Minister Quint hissed. His fear pheromones now so strong that they made several other species feel sick. The creatures from those worlds would be worse than the Devourers themselves. Would they? Elder Moran asked quietly. We know nothing about the inhabitants of the Deathworlds, if any creatures could possibly survive on such planets. But we do know one thing. Any species that could evolve on a world where everything is trying to kill them would have to be the ultimate survivors. Captain Veltar's hand tightened on her sword hilt. Even if such creatures exist, and even if we could contact them, why would they help us? They might see this as an opportunity to expand their own territory. Because, Elder Moran replied, if the Devourers consume our galaxy, they will eventually reach the Deathworlds too. Even ultimate survivors need allies when facing extinction.
Oh.
Debate that followed was the most intense in the Assembly's history. Many representatives argued that contacting Deathworlders would be like inviting demons to solve their problems. Others pointed out that demons might be exactly what they needed. In the end, it was the simple mathematics of survival that decided the issue. They had tried everything else. Their conventional military was gone. Their advanced technology was useless. The Devourers were coming, and nothing in their civilized galaxy could stop them, as another star system winked out of existence on their long-range sensors. The vote was taken. By the narrowest of margins, the Galactic Assembly authorized contact with the forbidden sectors. They would send their fastest ship to the nearest Deathworld and pray that whatever they found there would be willing to help rather than simply. Adding to their problems, no one in that chamber could have imagined what they were about to unleash upon the galaxy. The survey ship Harmony's Grace drifted silently at the edge of an unknown star system. Captain Yelena pressed her forehands against the observation window and stared at the yellow sun ahead of them. This was it, their first attempt to contact. Beings from a death world, her translucent Valkyrie skin rippled with nervous patterns that she could not control. Captain called Navigator Keswick from his station. We are receiving the strangest readings from the third planet. The electromagnetic signals are unlike anything in our databases. Science Officer Temek, a young Zeth who had graduated top of his class just 2 years ago, was practically vibrating with confusion at his console. These numbers make no sense. he chittered anxiously. The planet is broadcasting thousands of different signals at the same time. Radio waves, microwave transmissions, something called television broadcasts. It is like they have no concept of communication discipline. Captain Yelena moved to look over his shoulder at the data streaming across his screen. In her 30 years of exploration, she had never seen anything like it. Most civilized worlds used efficient, clean communication methods that did not pollute. The electromagnetic spectrum. This planet seemed to be shouting into space with the voice of billions. "What about the planet itself?" she asked. "Is it truly a death world?" Tamak pulled up the atmospheric analysis and immediately wished he had not. "Captain, this world should not be able to support any form of life. The atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen that is poison to most species we know. The surface temperature varies from -40 degrees to +50 degrees Celsius. The weather patterns show massive storms that could tear apart our ship." Keswick leaned over from his navigation station. "Do not forget the gravity, Tamak. It is almost twice what most species consider comfortable. And look at this, the planet has active tectonic plates. The ground literally moves and shakes on a regular basis. Yet there are cities," Captain Yelena observed, studying the visual scans. "Massive cities, covering entire continents. And look at those lights, transportation networks that stretch for thousands of kilometers. Whatever lives on this world has not just survived, they have built a civilization." The ship moved closer, and the readings became even more disturbing. The planet's single moon showed clear signs of artificial structures. Ships moved between them with mechanical precision, their designs unlike anything in the Assembly's archives. Captain Temek said quietly, "I am detecting weapon signatures on some of those platforms. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, and some technologies I cannot identify. This entire system appears to be heavily fortified. Diplomatic training takeover. Whatever these creatures were, they were clearly advanced and possibly hostile. The first contact protocols were clear. Announced peaceful intentions. Greetings, inhabitants of the Third World. We are representatives of the Galactic Assembly." The response came so quickly that it made everyone on the bridge jump. The voice was harsh and direct, speaking in a language that the translator struggled to process. "Unknown vessel, this is Colonel Jake Murphy of the United Earth Defense Command. You are in restricted space. State your intentions immediately or prepare to be boarded." Captain Yelena blinked all four of her eyes in surprise. She had expected either no response or perhaps a lengthy diplomatic exchange. Instead, these humans were making demands and threatening action within seconds of first contact. "We seek peaceful contact with your government," she replied carefully. There was a brief pause, then Colonel Murphy's voice returned, even more stern than before. "Remain in your current position and make no sudden movements. You will be escorted to Luna Station for processing. Any hostile action will be met with immediate and overwhelming force." Before Captain Yelena could ask what overwhelming force meant, her navigator made a sound of pure terror. "Captain, we have company." 3 ships had appeared around the Harmony's grace. Not approached, appeared. One moment the space around them was empty. The next moment they were surrounded by sleek, angular vessels that looked nothing like the elegant curves of assembly technology. These ships were brutal and functional, designed for one purpose only. "How did they get so close without our sensors detecting them?" Keswick whispered. T.E. Moke was frantically working at his console, trying to understand what had happened. "Do not know. Our sensors show nothing, even now. According to our instruments, those ships do not exist. But they very clearly did exist." Captain Yelena could see them through the observation windows. Dark metal holes covered in what looked like weapons. No decorative elements, no artistic flourishes. Just pure military efficiency. Colonel Murphy's voice filled their bridge again. "Follow the lead ship to Luna Station. Maintain current speed and heading. Any deviation from the flight path will be considered a hostile act." Captain Yelena had no choice but to comply. As they followed the human escort ships toward the planet's moon, she tried to process what she was seeing. These creatures had stealth technology that could fool the Assembly's best sensors. They had fortified their entire star system. They spoke of violence as casually as most species discuss the weather. Captain Temok said quietly, "I am analyzing the energy signatures from their ships. Their power systems are unlike anything we have ever encountered. They appear to be using controlled fusion reactions, the same process that powers stars." "That is impossible," Keswick protested. "No species has ever been able to safely contain stellar fusion in a ship-sized reactor. The energy requirements alone would be enormous." "Yet they have done it," Temok replied. "And if my readings are correct, each of their ships has enough power to destroy a small moon." Luna Station was even more impressive than the ships. What Captain Yelena had assumed was a simple outpost turned out to be a massive military installation. Docking bays large enough to hold ships 10 times the size of Harmony's Grace. Defense platforms that bristled with weapons. And everywhere, the signs of a species that expected to fight for their survival as their ship was guided into a docking bay. The bay walls were scorched and pitted with what looked like battle damage. These humans did not just prepare for war, they had been fighting wars. The docking process was swift and efficient. Before Captain Yelena could even shut down their engines, human soldiers in armored suits had secured the docking bay. They moved with a precision that spoke of extensive military training. Their weapons held with the casual competence of beings who knew how to use them. A human in a different uniform approached their ship. Yelena got her first close look at one of the Deathworld inhabitants. He was shorter than a Valkyrie, but much more solidly built. His skin was dark from exposure to his world's harsh sun, and scars on his face spoke of a life filled with violence. "Captain Yelena," came Colonel Murphy's voice over the communication system. "Welcome to Luna Station. You and your crew will be escorted to a secure briefing room where we can discuss your request for contact. Please understand that this facility is under military control, and all assembly regulations are suspended while you are here." As they prepared to leave their ship, Navigator Keswick grabbed Captain Yelena's arm with one of his secondary hands. "Captain, I do not think we should have come here. These humans are not like any species we have encountered.
Oh.
They are dangerous." Captain Yelena looked out at the human soldiers waiting for them and realized that Keswick was absolutely right. Everything about this species screamed danger. Their technology, their military bearing, the Devourers had proven immune to civilized weapons and tactics. Perhaps it would take uncivilized beings to stop them. "Remember," she told her crew as they prepared to meet their escorts, "we came here because we need help that no civilized species can provide. These humans may be our only hope." As they stepped off their ship and into the human military base, Captain Yelena could not shake the feeling that they had not just made first contact with a new species. They had awakened something that had been sleeping at the edge of known space, something that viewed the galaxy not as a community to join, but as a territory to claim. The humans were polite and professional as they escorted the alien visitors through the corridors of Luna Station. But Captain Yelena noticed how their hands never strayed far from their weapons, and how their eyes constantly scanned for threats. These were not beings who had ever known true peace. As they approached the briefing room, where they would explain the Devourer threat, Captain Yelena wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. The Assembly had sent them to find allies in their fight for survival. Instead, they had found predators. The briefing room on Luna Station was cold and sterile. Captain Yelena sat across from 3 humans who made her skin crawl with instinctive fear. She had met dangerous beings before, pirates, raiders, even the proud Altarian warriors. But these humans were different. They radiated a controlled violence that seemed barely contained beneath their professional manner. General Lisa Hayes sat in the center, a compact woman with gray hair and scars along her jaw. Her eyes never stopped moving, constantly evaluating everything in the room, as if looking for threats or weaknesses. To her left sat Dr. Peter Stone, whose calm expression could not hide the sharp intelligence behind his gaze. Colonel Jake Murphy stood near the door, his hand resting casually on what was clearly a weapon. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," General Hayes said, her voice carrying the weight of someone used to making life and death decisions. "Your entire galactic civilization is being destroyed by these Devourer creatures, and you came to our system hoping to hire mercenaries." Captain Yelena's translator struggled with the word mercenaries. In all the Assembly's databases, no species had ever fought wars for payment. War was either about survival or expansion, never commerce. We seek allies against a threat that could destroy all life in the galaxy, she corrected carefully. Dr. Stone leaned forward and Captain Yelena felt her survival instincts scream at her to run. The human's eyes held the focused intensity of a predator studying its next meal. Tell us about these enemies of yours. What are their capabilities? How many ships do they have? What weapons do they use? What are their weaknesses, Captain? Yelena described the Devourers and their unstoppable advance across the galaxy. She noticed something that terrified her. The humans were not showing fear or concern. Instead, they exchanged glances that looked almost interested, like professionals, discussing a challenging but solvable problem. So these creatures absorb energy-based attacks and use them to grow stronger, General Hayes mused. They can convert matter into more of themselves. They operate as a hive mind. They move faster than light and have consumed 12 sectors so far. She turned to Colonel Murphy. Jake, what is your assessment? Colonel? Murphy's scarred face cracked into what might have been a smile. But it made Captain Yelena think of a predator baring its teeth. Ma'am, they sound like a target-rich environment. We've been looking for a real challenge ever since we finished pacifying the outer system. Casual way he spoke of pacifying an entire solar system made Navigator Keswick emit such a strong distress pheromone that the room's air recycling system kicked into overdrive. Captain Yelena realized with growing horror that these humans had been fighting wars throughout their own star system, and they had one. Pacifying. She asked weakly. Dr. Stone activated a holographic display that filled the space above the table. Images flashed past massive explosions that could be seen from space. Cities burning, mushroom-shaped clouds rising into the sky. And through it all, humans not just surviving, but thriving. Captain, your people made a serious error in judgment. When you came here, Dr. Stone explained, you assumed that because our world is hostile, we would be primitive and desperate. The opposite is true. We did not survive our planet's dangers despite them. We survived because of them. The hologram showed Earth's history in rapid succession. Ice ages that should have killed any intelligent species. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Massive asteroid impacts that destroyed most life on the planet. And through every catastrophe, humans adapted, learned, and became stronger. Every disaster that should have destroyed us instead taught us something new, Dr. Stone continued. Every predator that hunted us made us better hunters. Every disease that killed millions of us gave immunity to the survivors. Every war between our tribes made our weapons and tactics more effective. General Hayes stood, and her presence seemed to fill the entire room like a physical force. We have been preparing for war our entire existence as a species. Not against any specific enemy, but against the concept of threats that we could not imagine. Your Devourers are not some unprecedented horror to us. They are just another problem that needs to be solved. Captain Yelena felt sick. Have consumed entire fleets. The most advanced weapons in the galaxy barely scratch their holes. They adapt to our tactics within hours. Your weapons, Colonel Murphy corrected. Your tactics. Captain, with respect, your people have been living in a peaceful galaxy for thousands of years. You have forgotten what real warfare looks like. Dr. Stone manipulated the hologram to show Earth's military technology. Ships that looked like instruments of death rather than exploration vessels. Weapons that seemed designed for no purpose other than destroying enemies as efficiently as possible. Soldiers whose equipment and training spoke of a species that expected every battle to be a fight for survival. We have been at war with our own planet for our entire history, Dr. Stone explained. The gravity tries to crush us, so we became strong. The weather tries to kill us, so we learned to adapt. The animals hunt us, so we became better hunters. The diseases attack us, so we developed medicine that can cure almost anything. But most importantly, General Hayes added, we have been at war with each other. Humans have fought humans for thousands of years, developing weapons and tactics that your peaceful species never needed to imagine. We know how to fight enemies who think like us, who can adapt like us, who are as intelligent as us. The hologram showed human military doctrine, strategies for fighting enemies with superior technology, tactics for dealing with overwhelming numbers, weapons designed to work against foes who could adapt to conventional attacks. It was a complete science of warfare that the assembly had never needed to develop. Your devourers consume energy and use it to grow stronger, Colonel Murphy asked. We have weapons that do not use energy. They consume matter and turn it into more of themselves. We have weapons that destroy matter at the atomic level. They operate as a hive mind. We have tactics specifically designed to disrupt command and control systems. Captain Yelena stared at the humans in growing terror. You have weapons that can hurt them? Captain General Hayes replied. We have weapons that can hurt anything. The question is not whether we can fight your devourers. The question is whether we want to. What do you mean? Captain Yelena asked, though she was afraid. Of the answer, Dr. Stone smiled, and it was the most frightening expression Captain Yelena had ever seen. We mean that helping you fight the devourers would require us to reveal our true capabilities to the galaxy. Once we do that, everything changes. Your peaceful assembly, your trade networks, your diplomatic solutions to problems, all of that becomes obsolete. We are not just offering to help you fight a war, General Hayes explained. We are offering to win it completely. But understand this, when we are finished, the galaxy will know exactly who saved them. And more importantly, they will know what happens to anyone who threatens human interests in the future. The implications of what she was hearing crashed over Captain Yelena like a wave.
Yeah.
These humans were not offering to be temporary allies. They were offering to become the galaxy's new dominant species. You would conquer us, she whispered. Conquer is such an ugly word, Dr. Stone replied. We prefer to think of it as bringing order to chaos. The galaxy has been peaceful because there were no real threats. Now there is a real threat, and you need real protectors. We are prepared to be those protectors. Colonel Murphy stepped forward. Captain, let me explain something about human nature. We do not do anything halfway. If we fight your war, we will win it completely. If we become involved in galactic affairs, we will not remain minor players. If we reveal our capabilities, we will use them to ensure that threats like the Devourers never arise again. How? Captain Yelena asked. General Hayes activated another holographic display showing human fleet positions that could control every major space lane in the galaxy. By being so obviously dangerous that no rational enemy would dare attack, by being so clearly superior that resistance becomes pointless, by being so prepared for any threat that even thinking about challenging us becomes suicide. Ow. The room fell. Silent as Captain Yelena processed what she was hearing, her people had come seeking allies to help them fight for survival. Instead, they had found a species that viewed the Devourer invasion not as a crisis, but as an opportunity to reshape the entire galaxy according to their own vision. Will you help us? She finally asked. General Hayes smiled. Captain, we will do more than help you. We will solve your problem so completely that it will never be a problem again. But when we are done, do not expect the galaxy to return to the sea. Way it was, the age of peaceful coexistence is ending. The age of human protection is beginning. Security guards escorted Captain Yelena and her crew to their quarters. She realized with crystal clarity that they had not found allies. They had awakened something that had been sleeping at the edge of known space, something that saw the Devourer crisis not as a disaster, but as the perfect excuse to claim its place as the galaxy's apex predator. The humans were going to help them fight the Devourers. But when the war was over, Captain Yelena suspected that the galaxy would simply have traded one set of masters for another. 3 days after the alien delegation arrived at Luna Station, Earth began to show its true face. Admiral Kate Foster stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as her ship emerged from the shadow of Mars. The massive vessel was nothing. Like the elegant assembly ships with their flowing curves and artistic designs, the Retribution looked exactly like what it was, a machine built for one purpose only. Status report, Admiral Foster commanded. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had earned her rank during the brutal asteroid mining wars, where Corporate fleets had fought over every scrap of valuable, or in the outer system. Commander Ryan Bell, a veteran who still bore scars from the Luna independence conflict, consulted his tactical display. All battle groups are ready, Admiral. The Atlantic Fleet is holding position near Jupiter. Pacific Fleet has finished sweeping the outer asteroids for hostile contacts. The solar defense grid is fully operational and standing by. Captain Yelena, who was serving as a liaison aboard the human flagship, watched in growing horror as Earth's true military might revealed itself. What she had thought were peaceful mining operations were actually massive shipyards pumping out vessel after vessel. Communication satellites transformed into weapon platforms. Research stations deployed sensor arrays and missile launchers that made assembly technology look like children's toys. Your species has been hiding all of this, she said to Dr. Stone, who had joined them on the bridge for the deployment. Dr. Stone nodded grimly.
Captain, every human knows one simple truth. Somewhere out there is an enemy bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than us.
We have spent our entire history preparing to fight enemies we had never met, developing weapons for threats we could only imagine. Your devourers are not unknown monsters to us. They are just another target that needs to be eliminated. Tests of human capabilities came at Kepler Station, remote assembly outpost where the devourers had been gathering for their next major assault. Long-range sensors showed the shadow creatures massing in unprecedented numbers, their bioships forming dark clouds that blocked out the stars. The human fleet arrived in perfect formation, dropping out of hyperspace with a precision that made assembly computers crash trying to process the coordination involved. 12 battle groups, each containing dozens of ships, appeared exactly where they were supposed to be at exactly the right time. Admiral, Foster's voice echoed across all communication channels. All units, this is Retribution, actual. Rules of engagement are simple. Anything that is not broadcasting assembly identification codes gets turned into scrap metal. Let us show these shadow creatures what happens when they mess with the neighborhood. Captain Yelena expected the human fleet to position themselves defensively, perhaps trying to hold a line while evacuating the station. Instead, the humans did something that no assembly fleet had ever attempted. They attacked. The devourers swarmed toward the human ships like a living nightmare, their bio-vessels rippling with dark energy that had consumed dozens of assembly fleets. These creatures had learned to absorb energy weapons, adapt to kinetic attacks, and overwhelm their enemies through sheer numbers. But the humans had studied the assembly's battle records carefully, and they had prepared accordingly. They used Retribution, opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Railguns accelerated metal projectiles to significant fractions of light speed, hitting devourer ships with the force of small asteroids. The projectiles were solid matter, not energy, and they punched through the alien holes like paper. Fusion. Torpedoes turned space itself into a weapon, creating miniature stars that burned everything within their blast radius. The devourers tried to absorb the energy, but there was simply too much of it delivered too quickly for their biological systems to process. Most terrifyingly, particle beam weapons tore apart the very atoms that made up the devourer ships. The aliens had evolved to consume and redirect energy, but they had no defense against weapons that attacked the fundamental structure of matter itself. Commander. Bell coordinated the assault with the calm efficiency of someone ordering supplies. Target Priority Alpha, their command ship. All batteries, concentrated fire. Marine battalions, prepare for boarding operations. Boarding operations? Captain Yelena asked, her translator struggling with the concept. You intend to board their vessels while they are still fighting? Dr. Stone's smile was predatory. Captain, the best way to understand your enemy is to capture their technology and study it. If they happen to be using that technology at the time we take it, well, that just makes the data more complete. As the first Devourer vessel exploded under concentrated human fire, something unprecedented happened. The other Devourer ships began to retreat. These creatures, which had never shown fear or hesitation in their 50-year rampage across the galaxy, were actually running away from the human fleet. But the humans were not content to simply drive them off. Admiral Foster's voice crackled. Over the communication system, all units, pursue, and destroy. I want every single one of these things eliminated before they can report back to their main force. What followed was not a battle. It was a hunting expedition. Human ships faster and more maneuverable than anything the Assembly had ever built chased down the fleeing devourers one by one. The shadow creatures that had seemed invincible just hours before were systematically destroyed with clinical efficiency. Impossible, whispered Science Officer Temok, who was monitoring the battle from the Harmony's grace. The humans are not just winning, they are making it look easy. Captain Yelena watched the tactical display in stunned silence. In less than 2 hours, the human fleet had destroyed a devourer force that could have consumed an entire assembly sector. They had done it without losing a single ship, and their casualties were so light that they barely registered on the medical channels. How? She asked Dr. Stone. How are you so much more effective than our fleets? Dr. Stone pulled up a tactical analysis on his portable display. Captain, your people have been fighting a defensive war against an enemy you do not understand. You position your fleets to protect things, planets, stations, shipping lanes. You use weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. Follow rules of engagement that assume your enemies will behave rationally. The display showed human tactical doctrine side by side with assembly strategies. The differences were stark and terrifying. We fight offensive wars against enemies we assume are trying to kill us, Dr. Stone continued. We use weapons designed to eliminate targets as efficiently as possible. Our only rule of engagement is victory. Admiral Foster turned from her command station to address the alien observer directly. Captain Yelena, your people made the mistake of thinking that advanced civilization meant abandoning the skills needed for survival. You developed beautiful art, efficient trade networks, and elegant diplomacy. All very impressive. She gestured to the tactical display, where human ships were finishing off the last of the devourer stragglers. But you forgot the most important. Skill. Any species can have the ability to kill anything that threatens your existence. We never forgot that skill. We have been perfecting it for thousands of years. Commander Bell approached with a preliminary battle report. Admiral, all enemy contacts have been eliminated. We have recovered several intact devourer bioships for study. Marine teams report that the enemy vessels contain some interesting technology, but nothing that poses a threat to our ships. Casualties? Admiral Foster asked. 17 wounded, none seriously, no ships lost. Ammunition expenditure was well within acceptable limits. Captain Yelena felt sick. Humans were discussing the complete destruction of a major devourer. Force the same way assembly merchants might discuss a successful trade negotiation. What happens now? She asked quietly. Admiral Foster smiled. Captain Yelena realized that she was looking at the expression of a predator that had just discovered how much fun hunting could be. Now we take this war to the enemy. Your assembly has been playing defense for 50 years, letting these creatures choose when and where to attack. That ends today. She activated the fleet communication system. All units, this is Admiral Foster. Prepare for deep space operations. We are going to find every devourer nest, every staging area, every command center they have, and we are going to destroy them all. Dr. Stone turned to Captain Yelena with an expression that mixed professional satisfaction with something far more dangerous. Captain, please send a message to your assembly. Tell them that the Deathworlders have arrived And we are very interested in meeting the rest of these devourers, all of them. As the human fleet began moving toward the galactic core, where intelligence suggested the devourer main force was located, Captain Yelena realized that the war had fundamentally changed. For 50 years, the galaxy had been fighting for survival, against an unstoppable enemy. Now the devourers were the ones who needed to worry about survival. The humans had arrived. And they were not interested in defense or containment or negotiation. They were interested in complete and total victory. And Captain Yelena was beginning to understand that when humans wanted something, they usually got it. For months after first contact, the galaxy had been turned completely upside down. The great crystal halls of the Galactic Assembly buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of worlds gathered for the most important meeting in their history. The devourer threat, which had consumed 12 sectors and seemed unstoppable, was gone. Completely eliminated, not driven away or contained, but utterly destroyed. Fleet Admiral Susan Grant stood at the center of the assembly chamber. Her crisp military uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes and elegant garments worn by the alien representatives. Her presence commanded attention in a way that made even the proudest Altarian warriors shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Admiral Grant began, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle, "I am pleased to report that the devourer threat has been completely neutralized. Their command structure has been dismantled, their fleet assets destroyed or captured for study, and their remaining forces are in full retreat toward the galactic core." Elder Moran, whose ancient bark showed the stress of recent months, leaned forward with difficulty. "Admiral, the Assembly owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. You have saved our civilization from extinction." Admiral Grant's smile was polite, but carried an edge that made several representatives shiver. "Actually, Elder, we prefer to think of it as an investment in galactic stability. Earth has decided to take a more active role in interstellar affairs going forward." The implications of that statement rippled through the chamber like a shockwave. Commander Zektar, who had survived the war by staying far from any combat zones, raised one of his 4 hands with visible trembling. "What exactly does that mean?" "Admiral, President Helen Clark, Earth's first elected leader to address an interstellar body, stepped forward. Unlike the military officers, she wore simple civilian clothes, but her presence was just as commanding. It means that humanity is prepared to offer our protection services to any world or system that requests them. In exchange, we ask only for fair trade agreements and the right to establish defensive positions in key strategic locations." The translation software in the chamber struggled with the concept of protection services, but every being present understood the underlying meaning. Humans were offering to become the galaxy's police force, military, and ultimate authority all rolled into one. Minister Quinth, whose fear pheromones had been a constant presence during the war, clicked his mandibles nervously. "If a world chooses not to request these services," Dr. Stone, now serving as Earth's chief science advisor to the Assembly, activated a holographic display showing detailed analysis of captured devourer technology. "God, that would be unfortunate, Minister. Our study of the enemy has revealed that they were not the only threat in the galaxy. There are other hostile forces in the Outer Rim, other species that view peaceful worlds as easy targets. The galaxy is a dangerous place for those without adequate protection." Captain Yelena, who had been promoted to ambassador following her role in First Contact, found herself in the surreal position of advocating for the species that terrified her. "Honored Assembly, I have observed human military doctrine firsthand. They do not simply conquer through superior firepower. Every system they protect becomes stronger, more capable, better defended. Their protection is not occupation, it is transformation." "Transformation into what?" asked Captain Veltar of the Altarian Knights, her warrior pride struggling with the reality of human superiority. Admiral Grant gestured to another holographic display, showing human fleet positions. Throughout the galaxy, the formations looked defensive, designed to protect trade routes and inhabited systems. But anyone with military training could see that they also controlled every major hyperspace junction. every strategic resource, and every choke point that mattered in the galaxy. Transformation into worlds that never have to fear extinction again, Admiral Grant replied. The Devourers were just one threat among many. There are pirates in the Outer Rim who prey on merchant ships. There are aggressive species that expand by conquering their neighbors. There are natural disasters that could destroy entire civilizations if not properly managed. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the final point. Humanity has spent its entire existence preparing for dangers that have not yet emerged. We have learned that the best defense is to be so obviously capable, so clearly prepared, and so overwhelmingly dangerous that no rational enemy would dare to attack. President Clark stepped forward again. The question before this assembly is simple. Do you want humans as your protectors and partners, or would you prefer to face the next existential threat alone? The debate that followed was intense, but brief. Every representative had seen the battle reports from the Devourer War. Human fleets had accomplished in 4 months what the Assembly had failed to do in 50 years. They had not just won, they had made victory look effortless. Elder Moran spoke for many when she said, "The Assembly accepts humanity's offer of protection and partnership. May this be the beginning of a new age of peace and prosperity for all species." The vote was unanimous. Though Captain Yelena noticed that many representatives looked less than enthusiastic about their choice, they were voting for survival not because they trusted the humans, but because they feared what would happen if they refused. As the formal ceremonies concluded, and various species began negotiating their new relationships with Earth,
Captain!
Yelena found herself standing with Dr. Stone in the chamber's observation deck. Below them, the bustle of interstellar diplomacy continued, but everything had changed. Human advisors worked alongside alien officials. Human technology was being integrated into assembly systems. Human values, pragmatic, efficient, focused on results rather than process, were beginning to reshape galactic civilization. "Doctor," Captain Yelena said quietly, "I must ask something that has been troubling me. Did humanity plan all of this? The way everything is developed seems too convenient to be accidental." Dr. Stone's expression was unreadable as he watched. Human patrol ships taking up positions around the Assembly's core worlds. "Captain, let me share something that every human child learns in school. Fortune favors the prepared mind. We did not plan for the Devourers specifically, but we have been preparing for something like them for our entire history as a species." He gestured toward the human ships visible through the observation windows. "When your people contacted us, they gave us something we had never had before, a legitimate reason to reveal our capabilities to the galaxy. The Devourer crisis provided the perfect justification for everything we wanted to do anyway." "Which was what?" Captain Yelena asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "To ensure that humanity never again has to worry about existential threats," Dr. Stone replied simply. "Your assembly spent 3,000 years building a peaceful, cooperative civilization. Very admirable. But you forgot the most important. A lesson of evolution: the species that survives is not the strongest or the smartest. It is the one most capable of adapting to change." Below them, the reality of the new galactic order was taking shape. Human Marines stood guard at assembly facilities. Human ships patrolled trade routes that had been vulnerable for centuries. Human administrators worked to improve the efficiency of systems that had operated the same way for millennia. The galaxy spent thousands of years believing that peaceful species were the most evolved, Dr. Stone continued. They thought that violence was primitive, that cooperation was the highest form of civilization. They forgot that nature does not care about their ideals. Nature only cares about what works. Captain Yelena watched as a human destroyer escorted a convoy of assembly merchant ships through what had once been Devourer-controlled space. The merchant captains were probably grateful for the protection, but she wondered if they understood the price they were paying for it. "Captain," Dr. Stone said, "your people did something unprecedented when they contacted us. They did not just ask for help against a specific threat. They invited apex predators to join the galactic community. They gave us access to star charts, technology databases, and political intelligence that we could never have obtained through conquest alone." A new group of human ships appeared on the long-range sensors, taking up patrol positions along the border with unexplored space. They were not just defending known territories, they were expanding the human sphere of influence into regions that no assembly ship had ever visited. The galaxy will never be the same, Dr. Stone concluded. The age of peaceful coexistence is over. The age of human hegemony has begun. Your people called for help when they faced extinction, and help arrived. But they should have been more careful about what kind of help they were asking for. As Earth's influence spread throughout the galaxy and human values reshaped interstellar civilization, one thing had become perfectly clear. The aliens truly had not known who would come. When they sent their desperate plea to the Deathworlds, they had awakened humanity. And now the galaxy belonged to the species that had been forged in violence, tempered by struggle, and shaped by the simple truth that in a hostile universe, survival belonged to those who were prepared to fight for it.